Well, today we're going to be looking at the latest 360 camera from Insta360, the X4. Does it live up to the hype? And if you already have the Insta360 X3, is it worth upgrading to? Well, I'm going to try to answer some of these questions in this video. And by the way, Insta360, they did send me the X4 for review purposes. They didn't pay me for this video. They didn't tell me what to say. They don't get to see this video before it's published, and all opinions that you're going to see in this video are all my own. Now, 360 cameras have really changed the way that we're able to shoot video by being able to reframe any portion of a video, manipulate it for new creative shots that you had never gotten before. And you never miss a shot using a 360 camera. By the way, product links are down in the description below to all the products I'm about to talk about, including the X4. The X4 now boasts that it can shoot 8K video at 30 frames per second, and it also has that 5nm AI chip, which is supposed to help with image stabilization and also some more creative shots. Now, you know, the specs are really good on paper with the X4, but in real-world use, does it actually live up to the expectations? Now, I'm not going to go through all the specs and all the little nuanced little features of the X4. Why? Well, because everybody and their mother on release day released all the specs, everything that you need to know about the X4. My video is from a real-world user perspective. But this video is going to be a little bit longer than a normal review video because I really want to check out a lot of things with this camera and see, is it really worth upgrading if you already have the X3 to the X4? Also, I'm going to have chapters listed down below so that you can skip to the portion that most interests you. So first up, we're going to do a little side-by-side comparison of the Insta360, the X2, the X3, and the X4 in single lens mode. We're going to see what the video quality looks like and also a little audio test. Okay, so now we're going to test the X2 versus the X3 versus the X4. Kind of just walking around. First, we'll do a quick little audio test with the X2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The X3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now the X4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see how it handles dark shaded area here. Very, very contrasty. I can tell on the screen of the X3, looks like it's a little bit overblown behind this shoulder. On the X4, it looks like it's very well controlled. It doesn't look like it's overexposed at all. So that's something to keep in mind regarding dynamic range. And by the way, it is not on HDR video. It's just regular video, 4K, single lens mode, 30 frames per second. The X2 is only, I believe, 2.5K, 2.7K. But anyway, walking around, sun behind me, some backlit situation, and then I'll turn around and then we'll get that nice blue sky behind me and see how they compared. Tell me down in the comment section below which one at this point of the video did you like. Do you think the X2 held up? You like the X3 better, or do you think the X4 is a substantial improvement? And now let's look at the Insta360 X2, the X3, and the X4 on an e-bike, shooting 360 degrees. I'm going to reframe the 8K 30 frames per second to a 4K timeline so that they're all equal all the way across. All right, now here's a portion that everybody always asks for, and it's kind of unfair because 360 cameras are not meant to be used in low light situations because they're not a DJI Action 4 or the Pocket 3 or even the Insta360 Ace Pro, which are all very good in low light. But just for giggles, we're going to do single lens mode on the X3, also the X4, side-by-side comparison. Ready, set, go. Okay, now we're going to do a low light test with the Insta360 X4 against the X3. And you may be saying, okay, you know, Andre, this is not really a fair test because 360 cameras are not known for low light capability at all. And they're really not known as action cameras. But the nice thing about a 360 camera is that, like with the X3 or X4, you can choose single lens mode. So now we're in 4K 30 frames per second on both of these, and they do not have a low light mode, but the X4 does have that 5 nanometer AI chip. So let's see, does it help with low light at all, even though there's no low light option in the menu for either of these cameras. So that should be a pretty good test in single lens mode, the Insta360 X3 versus the X4 in low light conditions, 4K 30 frames per second. But the question is, without sticking it in the computer yet and looking at it, I don't know which one's going to be the winner. I do have some surprising results regarding pros and cons a little bit later on in this video. But at this point, which one do you think performed better? Tell me down in the comment section below. You know, I do have to admit, I have always enjoyed Insta360 products because I think that they're very, very good. And this is dating back to the 1R, which I thought was a very good camera. And then even with the X2, the X3, of course, the X4. You can't forget about the Ace and also the Ace Pro and the Insta360 Go 3. Both of them, white and black. I've liked them all. I mean, is there a camera out there that gives you everything that you want? Is there the perfect camera out there? No, there's not. There's always some trade-offs. But I've always enjoyed their products because I think that they're very well built. I think they're innovative. And I think that the performance is really worth it. But I guess the point of this video is, does the Insta360 X4, does it live up to being the best 360 action camera, 360 camera that they've ever produced? Well, let's talk about some of the pros and cons about the X4. First off, build quality. Build quality is undeniably fantastic with this. It's very, very ruggedly built. And I do like the fact that they put the texture on the front of it now, because it does feel like it's not going to slip out of your hands as quickly or as easily as what the finish of the X3 felt like. Then we got to talk about 8K video. Now, a lot of people are going to say 8K, that's just a marketing ploy. But when you're talking about 8K over a 360 degree camera, so that's 8K split up between two lenses, it is a big deal going from 5.7K up to 8K, because now you're going to get a lot more detail, but you get to punch in and reframe a lot more effectively without losing image quality. So that is a big deal, and I think it is a big pro to have 8K 30 frames per second. The files, if you remember, if you have the X2 or the X3, whenever you would take the files off of the SD card, put it onto your computer, it would give you the two low resolution files, and then it would give you two of the higher resolution 360 files. Now with the X4, you get the two low resolution files, one from each camera, but now you get one high resolution file. To me, it's just a lot easier with the workflow, because I will admit, when I first got the 1R and I used the 360 module, I was like, okay, well, there's one file that says 360. I'll just delete the other files, and it did not work in the app, and that was on me. So one file now versus two. Audio, I will say, I mean, when you get up to the Insta360 X3, the audio was much improved. The X4 sounds even just a little bit better. So that is another pro with the Insta360 X4. Audio is a lot better with this. Stabilization, believe it or not, yes, stabilization is even better on the X4 than what it was on the X3. So I guess that 5 nanometer AI chip has helped out with the algorithm on how it controls its flow state image stabilization, but the image stabilization is improved on the X4 over the X3. Battery life is much better on the X4 than what it was on the X3, so it just gives you the ability to be able to shoot longer with it. And I do like the fact that they include the little lens guards now. Now, I know that there was an aftermarket where you could get the little stick-on lens guards for the X3 or the X2, but I like the fact that you've got the little screw-on lens guards that you can put onto the X4, because I will tell you, that's probably one of my biggest concerns anytime that I'm using any type of 360 camera, is actually damaging one or both of the lenses, because then it just turns into a brick. Well, now it's time to talk about some of the cons of the Insta360 X4. Now, as much as I do like 8K video that comes out of this thing gets hot, and it gets hot really, really fast. Now, in the car clip, when I had the Insta360 X4 on my Challenger, right at the beginning of this video, it was 98 degrees outside here in Texas. So that is very, very toasty. Luckily, I was driving around. So driving around, as long as you get some airflow going across the camera, it will keep it cool enough to where it will not shut down. But otherwise, if you don't have any type of airflow around it, I could only get about 8 to 9 minutes worth of recording time in 8K 30 frames per second before the camera would shut down because it overheated. So that's something to keep in mind. And while we're talking about 8K, as much as I do appreciate 8K resolution, and there are times when you're shooting video with the Insta360 X4 that the 8K looks really, really, really good. And then there's times where there's a massive color shift. And when the color shift happens, there's an exposure shift that's very dramatic that you don't notice in 5.7K or even 5.7K plus. But that may just be that Insta360 needs to work on the firmware just a little bit more to tweak that 8K and how it responds to slight changes in exposure, because that color shift was pretty dramatic. Now, here was a weird thing that I came across. When I would take the battery out of the X4, remove the battery to get the SD card out and put it into my computer to download the files, I will put the SD card back in, put the battery back in, try to turn on the X4, and it wouldn't turn on. And I would keep on hitting the power button, tap it slowly, hold and press. It just wouldn't turn back on. So I don't know if that's just a little internal glitch, if it has to do with the SD card being reset back in. I'm going to think that it has a lot more to do with the battery being removed. And when you put the battery back in, it takes a while, because it would take me about 3 or 4 attempts before I could get the X4 to actually turn back on again. That may be a firmware issue that Insta360 is going to address with it, but it's just something to note that I found in my testing with it. Earlier, I mentioned the extreme build quality of the X4. But there's a con to this as well, because the X4, it is bigger than what the X3 is, and it is heavier than the X3. And I say this as a con because if you're going to mount this onto your car and you're going to use it with a selfie stick, and if you're going to use it with, like for me, I use it with a snap mount, and the snap mount, this was just way too heavy for the snap mount. It would just start to lean back and lean back and lean back, or lean to one side depending on how the mounting was on it. But it's something to keep in mind, because the heavier that the camera gets, the more rugged of a system that you're going to need if you're going to attach it to your car. Probably like one of those 3 suction cup mounts that's going to keep it nice and secure on the back of the car, which is something I'm going to invest in. But I just have to mention it because the X4 being heavier does cause a little bit of an issue if you're trying to mount it onto surfaces. Now, overall, I'm very happy with the Insta360 X4, but the question is, if you have the X3, do you need to upgrade to the X4? Well, unless you really need 8K video resolution, if you don't really need 8K video, I would say no. I think that the X3 is more than capable of a camera, and it's rock solid. The firmwares have all been very good with it now. And if you look at the side-by-side comparison of the X3 versus the X4, the X3 still held its ground really, really well. Heck, even in the single lens mode, when I did the comparison of all 3 of these, the X2, the X3, and the X4, even the X2 in single lens mode still looked really, really good. But I will say this, if you've never owned a 360 camera before and you're wanting to get a 360 camera, if finances is not a problem for you and you just want to get the latest and greatest thing, then absolutely get the X4, be done with it, because now you got 8K resolution, and with firmware tweaks that they're going to do, it's only going to get better. Or you can, if you're on a tighter budget, get the X3, because it's now much better price than what it was originally. So tell me down in the comment section below, what do you think about the Insta360 X4? What do you think about all the footage samples that you saw between the X2, the X3, the X4, the X2, and the X3 in low light? Just overall, give me your impressions, because you're a consumer just like I am, and I'd love to hear your comments down below to tell me what you think about this X4 from Insta360. And remember, as always, I'll catch you in the next review. Bye-bye.